What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to GDT Live, presented by the Game Day Tarps podcast. My name's Dayton Camo. Alongside me, Colton Davies, as always. Colton, today's going to be a fun one. We mentioned yesterday that Nick Alberga from the Leafs Morning Take is coming on. And then Jason Gregor. He runs his own show, the Jason Gregor Show, on Sports 1440 Edmonton. So, he's going to talk all things Edmonton Oilers. Today's going to be a Leafs and Oilers episode. Lots of great stuff coming in. I see the boys in the chat already here. Willie, what's going on? Got New York Boost. What's up, buddy? So definitely see some fellas rolling in. Colton, how you doing today on a Tuesday morning?
I'm good. Yeah, Tuesday morning. Looking forward to Nick and Jason being on. It should be a good one.
Yeah, definitely. There was a few things that you wanted to touch on yesterday. USA World Junior roster by Stephen Ellis. The prediction of his roster. He released Canada's yesterday and USA's this morning, I believe.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah. You want to go through that?
Yeah. So just some of like the forwards he's got listed here. This is Stephen Ellis of Daily Faceoff. Teddy Stiga, James Higgins, and Brody Zemer. Cole Eiserman, Camille Bednarik, and Trevor Connolly. Riker Lee, Cullen Potter, LJ Mooney, Shane Venshagi. I think I just pronounced that one wrong. Vasanagi? I'll have to get someone to help me out with that.
Vansagi. Looks like it.
Yeah, something like that. Anyways.
Probably should
Will Horkoff. Yeah, Will Horkoff, AJ Spellacy, and Cole McKinney. And then for defense, he's got Cole Hudson and EJ Emery, Luke Osborne and Logan Hensler, Will Skahan and Adam Kleber, and Jacob Rombach and Blake Fiddler. In between the pipes, Nick Kemp, Caleb Heil, and Patrick Quillen.
Willie says it's a stacked roster.
It is stacked. It's a good roster. I know Steven had his Canada roster out yesterday, USA roster out today. I believe Finland and Sweden are also coming up here shortly as well. So great stuff there from Steven. And obviously he just had a look at the World Junior Summer Showcase and was able to watch these guys. So I think USA's roster is looking quite good. You and I had a good discussion. You, me, and Dallas, of course, on our World Juniors Canada prediction video that went out yesterday on our YouTube. Go check it out over on Game Day Tarps. We had a good discussion about that and whether the U.S. had a player of McKenna stature. And I think, honestly, I think they do. I think James Higgins is going to have an explosive tournament. I think Cole Hudson is going to be arguably the best defenseman in the entire tournament again. So looking at that American team, looking at them coming off back-to-back golds, playing on home ice in Minnesota, I think it's a deadly team this year.
Yeah, and I think we touched on it a couple of weeks ago and at the start of an episode. Cole Hudson, like we said, USA might not have a standout guy, but now looking at the players on the roster, looking at how they have performed like in the past few months, and it's hard to say that they don't have a standout guy. Cole Hudson, like you said, probably going to be that defenseman of the tournament, but
yeah,
you also have guys like Matthew Schaefer that's probably going to come in and play a full tournament this time. So I think Schaefer could give him a run for his money. There's lots of guys. I think this is definitely going to be a good tournament for sure.
Well, speaking of Matthew Schaefer, signed his ELC yesterday, which officially makes it official. He's not going to go to the NCAA. He's going to play either with the New York Islanders or head back down to Erie. I think it's a great decision for him. I know some people are a bit upset by it. They wanted to see him go into the NCAA and play some college hockey, but I think the best thing for Schaefer is, like I've said before, give him his 9 games and then let him go play out the rest of the year in Erie. He barely got to play last year. Let him go get some games in and get some action in, and there you go. We had a first pitch video as well, right?
Yeah. I'll throw that now. He was with the Mets last night at Citi Field, and he took the first pitch. So yeah, Matthew Schaefer, obviously probably not the best baseball player, but definitely a good hockey player. But hey, he threw that one from the mound. So most people, when they come in and do a first pitch, they're not even throwing it from like halfway. So I
No.
shouts to him. Big props to Matthew Schaefer. And then I saw a video on the Islanders socials, and they were
Mhm.
trying to, or maybe it was the Mets socials, don't know, but they were trying to get him to pronounce Long Island town names.
Oh yeah,
They're
yeah.
they're quite bizarre. I know East Coast Canada, we have some crazy town names, but the down there in Long Island, I don't even know. Like that, you get good luck if you go down there and try and read a road sign.
Also, Matthew Shaver, they revealed his jersey number and his contract through I believe it was 20 other kids who had lost parents. Absolutely a remarkable foundation and what they were able to do there. That stuff made me tear up. Good Lord. But big shout out to Schaefer and to that group. I mean, that's just like the Islanders organization is already just like hands down becoming one of the most respectful organizations in right now, I think, just for how they've handled Schaefer and bringing Schaefer on and giving him his jersey with the breast cancer logo and his mom's initials. I thought that was very touching as well.
Yeah. Obviously, big shout out to Matthew Darsh and the way he's handled this organization coming in. Obviously, first off season, want to make a good impression. I think he's done just that.
Yeah, absolutely. He has for sure. We got Nick Alberga backstage. Why don't we bring Nick on and we can chat some Leafs?
Sweet.
How's it going, Nick? Thanks for joining us today, man.
Guys, I'm fantastic. How are you today?
We're good. We're good.
Doing well.
Let's go to the big news, of course, that happened this offseason, and that's Mitchell Marner's. Well, he's gone. He's now in Vegas. Now, what do you make of that from your standpoint? And how did Toronto handle the Marner leaving saga?
Honestly, I think it was just a difficult situation for the last couple years. I think you go way back when Brad Treliving took the job over. He had like a quick time to decipher if that was the time to deal Mitch Marner before his no trade clause kicked in. Like honestly, that's the way I've looked at the last couple of years. I think Marner decided his fate, and that was to stay with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I get why he stayed with the Maple Leafs. I get why he didn't waive his no trade clause at the trade deadline, and I just think it was unfortunate because it's a homegrown talent who was drafted by this team out of the London Knights organization that he couldn't stick around long term, be a Leaf for life, maybe win in Toronto. But ultimately, that's life sometimes. You got to make decisions to move on. I think it's a really good fit with the Vegas Golden Knights, and we'll see how he fares there.
What do you make of the addition of Nick Waugh?
I think to salvage at least some sort of asset was a good, tidy piece of business. I watch a lot of Vegas Golden Knights hockey. Nick Waugh is a very underrated player. He was a very useful player the last couple of years. I think he played 3 seasons under Bruce Cassidy. He won a Stanley Cup with them a couple of years ago. Used predominantly more in like a fourth line center role, but I like that he shoots right. I like his versatility. I like that he's a bigger body. I like that he's won before. I think he fits in as the third line center for this team, and it'll be interesting to see who he plays with, whether it's Dakota Joshua, Bob McMahon, Max Domi, Scott Lawton. There's a variety of different players I think Toronto might utilize to try and deploy a stronger and more consistent bottom six. But I think is a good addition from that standpoint. Like you're never going to get equal value in a sign and trade for Mitch Marner, especially the way he went out, only having one destination in mind in the way that he did in Vegas. But I think if you were to get something from Vegas, Nick Waugh is a pretty useful piece, and we'll see how he fares here in Toronto.
People have said with the Leafs, like for the last number of years, the core four is the main piece of that team. And obviously now one piece of that core four is gone. Do you think Matthew Nyes, with Marner's departure, could kind of work his way up and kind of make a new core four, if you will?
Well, firstly, I'll say it's hilarious that for the last decade, the entire league outside of Toronto said this team was incapable of winning with a core four. Now that Marner's gone, they're incapable of winning without Mitch Marner. Like, which side is it? To answer your question, I think the sky's the limit for Matthew Nyes. I wonder about his ceiling. Like, he's coming off an impeccable season. Don't get me wrong. It's amazing what guys do in their contract years, but we're seeing him accelerate sort of his process in terms of what he can be in the NHL. Do I think 40 goals is an attainable task? Maybe. I think you look at the body of work offensively, it certainly helps when you play in the top six. It certainly helped when he played with Matthews and Marner the way he did consistently last year. I think the Leafs trying to get away from that, and I would too. I mean, John Tavares is not the same player he was. I know he's coming off a 38-goal campaign. I think the key here in Toronto, can they build the depth necessary up front? I think they figured that out in between the pipes now with what they have in Wool and Stolarz. The blue line is much more effective, much stronger, much more consistent, much more stable. And now they got to build that consistency and that depth specifically up front. Because I think it's been a big story for this team, say, the last 5 or 6 years. Is like, yeah, they had a pretty decent top six, but what about the bottom six? Can they contribute? I always like to bring back the idea of when Craig Berube won the cup with St. Louis way back when. Alex Steen, who's ready to take over as a GM very soon here with the Blues, was like a fourth line player on that team. And when you have that type of depth, it's understandable why you win a Stanley Cup. So obviously, at the very least, Matthew Nyes, one of the best players on this team to begin with. But I think from a mentality standpoint, the Leafs will try to stay away from that sort of thought that they have 4 players and then everybody else. I think they're trying to build some depth here. But yeah, he's a great player, boys.
What do you make of Matias Maccelli coming over from Utah? Crafty player. What does he kind of add to the offensive flair for the Leafs?
Yeah, I like the move. I mean, it was like that low risk, high reward type pickup. I like the incentive in the deal that he's got to hit a certain threshold and Utah gets a second instead of a third. I recall specifically a couple of years ago, watched a lot of the Arizona Coyotes games, and this guy was a standout player, very, very crafty. I'm always careful with the smaller type players in Toronto and how they mesh in that system. The Leafs are trying to play that heavy brand. I think that's the brand successful to be successful in the playoffs. But I think a lot of this will depend on where they deploy Maccelli. I think the fan base, knowing what I know about them already, and even us on Leafs Morning Take, we have him slotted in the top 6. It's one thing to say, hey, Maccelli is going to start with Matthews and Nyes or start with Tavares and Nylander. It's another thing for him to show up at camp and actually prove his point and prove that he's equipped enough to play with those guys. Like, let's not forget, he's coming off a down year with Utah. And I always wonder when GMs are quick, to trade. I don't know if they were quick, but they were open and willing to trade a guy like Matias Maccelli, who a couple of years ago was a standout player coming off a down year. We'll see if he can bounce back. But I think from what they paid to acquire the player, I think they weaponized their cap space, so to speak. He's an RFA following the season, so the incentive is there as well. I think it's a nice pickup, but always careful in this market at Toronto. You never know how things are going to play out. I'm curious to see who he plays with moving forward.
We talked about the depth a little bit. Let's talk about a depth guy, Bobby McMann. He came in 2 years ago. This was his first full season in the NHL. What do you think his ceiling is?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, right? Because he's a late bloomer. He burst onto the scene a couple of years ago. I think last year, I think Leafs fans are a bit sour on Bobby McMann entering the year because of how bad he was in the second half, most specifically in the Stanley Cup playoffs, where outside of the pass to Pacioretty, I think in Game 6 against the Florida Panthers, this guy was nowhere to be found. He definitely lost his confidence offensively in scoring, and his scoring prowess, I think, is the biggest thing he can bring to the table. At times, he struggles to use his size and his speed, and those are his 2 probably biggest assets outside of his shot. But I think he actually meshes really, really well what they're trying to build, especially under Craig Berube. So I like the fit quite a bit. I like the fact that it's a contract year. I mean, only time will tell if McMahon sticks around following this season. But I could definitely see a pathway where at least hits 20 goals again, if not 25 plus goals. Because I think that there's one thing I can bring up in the top 6 right now in general up front for the Maple Leafs. There's opportunity. And I think for a big chunk of last season, I saw quite a bit of good stuff from the likes of Tavares and Nylander and McMahon as a trio. So maybe they go back to that well. Maybe he gets a look with Nyes and Matthews at some point in time. If he's put in the right positions to produce, I think Bob McMahon could have a massive year. I think he's shown the innate ability to score in the NHL, and that shouldn't go unnoticed. It's more so about consistency. Like he really, really fell off late in the season when the team needed him the most, and that's why I think people are a bit sour on McMahon. But all in all, I think he's a good player. He's got speed, he's got size, and he's got a great shot.
And speaking of depth, he brought in a guy that also fits in probably perfect under Berube, and that's Dakota Joshua. What do you make of that fit, and how do you see the Leafs deploying Joshua?
Yeah, so there's that familiarity as well. If you recall, like Joshua started his career with the St. Louis Blues and Craig Berube was the coach. So that always helps. I think when guys bring in guys they know before, I think that's big. I think it's important and imperative to note too, like last season, this time, the talk of the town in the NHL was Dakota Joshua. I think a flurry of teams were going to be after this guy. If the Canucks didn't re-sign him, they give him that hefty contract, very reasonable at the time. And then he gets testicular cancer, right? Doesn't start the season on time, plays catch up the whole year, not to mention he's battling cancer. I think last year was a complete write-off for the guy. And that's why I expect a bounce back of sorts. I know he changes markets. I know there's a lot of expectation going to the Maple Leafs, but I like the nice full circle moment as a guy who was drafted by the Leafs back in 2014, comes back. He's got the size. He's not afraid to drop the gloves. Again, there's that familiarity with Craig Berube. And I think in a perfect world, a third line and a combo would say like a Nick Waugh, maybe Bob McMahon or somebody else on the other side. I think that's where I would try to start Dakota Joshua. Now in Vancouver, we saw him quite consistently in the top 6. I think, again, what the Leafs are trying to build is some depth up front. So Dakota Joshua, if you can put him on your third line, he could pop in 15 to 20 goals. We'll say you're probably feeling pretty damn good because he's a hefty set. You know, he plays strong, he plays heavy, and he pops in the goal, now and again. So I think it's a pretty good pickup. And that was the one thing I brought up quite a bit entering the offseason. It's one thing to have cap space, another thing to do something with it. And I think the Maple Leafs done a pretty sound job of weaponizing that cap space a bit. And that's a prime example in Dakota Joshua that Vancouver couldn't keep in their system.
What do you think goes on with the special teams this year? Because obviously Mitch Marner played a significant role on the power play and sometimes the penalty kill as well. Who do you think slides into that power play spot, though?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Because to finish last year, they went with the 5-forward set. Do they go back to Morgan Rielly on that power play? Does a newcomer enter the fold? I think Matthew Nye, safe to say, he has become a mainstay on that power play. But yeah, it sure is a big story when you look at the body of the Maple Leafs the last couple of years when they get to the playoffs. And again, it happened against the Florida Panthers. You get to a series and you just can't score on the power play. And all I've been hearing for the last decade, I remember when they put the big four, quote unquote, together, could they assemble the best power play ever? I'm still waiting for the best power play ever to show up when it matters most. Like I think it's one thing, and it's the conversation, guys, we have on a daily basis. We had it today about Nick Robertson. Scored 15 goals, great for him in 69 regular season games. It gets to the playoffs, it's a different game. You know, same conversation you can have for Mitch Marner, and I think you can justify why maybe it was time to step away for the Maple Leafs because he's a great regular season player, gets to the playoffs, and you can't even find the guy out there. And I think you can make that case for so many different players. I think as a body, the power play is another resounding story where it's like you got to figure out how to score on the power play. I think 1 or 2 more goals on the power play. I think they scored once on the power play against Florida in that series. You probably win that series. Like the margin for error is razor thin. So I think they'll continue to go at it. I'm under the belief that it's the same type of player. So how much different can it actually look? Taking Marner out of there, I wonder who the QB is. Is it, a Nylander? Is it somebody else? Do they make a change in the back end? Is it Morgan Rielly coming back? There's a lot of moving parts to this whole thing, but you're right. I wonder if it could be addition by subtraction. Losing a guy like Mitch Marner who had the puck on his stick so frequently, whether it was 5-on-5, especially as a power play quarterback, I wonder if the mentality changes in terms of the pressure of other players knowing they have a big dog on the ice. I know there's other big dogs like Nylander and Matthews, but I wonder from that aspect, not having Marner a pass first type guy, what that does for that power play. But certainly something I'll be watching moving forward there for sure. And don't forget Derek Lalonde, who had a really strong power play and special teams in general with the Tampa Bay Lightning coming in there. I'm very curious to see how he runs stuff. I know Mark Savard's going to run the power play, but from the PK standpoint, Lalonde's a guy who had a lot of success, namely with Tampa a couple of years back.
How do you see John Tavares kind of fitting in long-term now that his contract has now been signed and he's here for a few more years?
Yeah, well, I think every year we have the conversation like John Tavares can't play center anymore. And here he is last year, 38 goals and 74 points and still dominating. And I think we're gradually going to get to a point in time. And I think if I were to make a bold take in the next year and a half, the Maple Leafs will acquire another top 6 center, which I think would help slot John Tavares either on the wing, left wing, because I still view him as a consistent contributor for X amount of years. Like, all we've known from John Tavares, I covered the guy in junior hockey when he was 14. All he did was produce, score points, score goals, lead teams. I think that continues. Like, I'm not here to suggest that he's going to be like 35 and all of a sudden he can't score and he can't produce anymore. I just think where he plays will be a bit different. So I think down the road, he'll gradually, be more of a winger type guy who takes the occasional face-off. Right now, I still think he's equipped to be a center. But I think there'll be a long story arch that we talk about throughout the year. Can the Maple Leafs acquire another top 6 center, whether it's Nazem Kadri or somebody like Kadri to help shoulder the load, especially come playoff time, where I think there's a bit of fatigue that sets in with a veteran like John Tavares. But it is a polarizing conversation because everybody's looking for the next best shiny toy. So I think down the road on the wing right now, I still have him up at the middle on the second line.
I know it's early. We haven't even gotten to the preseason or training camps yet. But what would define success this year for the Leafs?
It's got to be at least a conference final. I know people are bored here in the offseason. I've seen a variety of different entities try to question if the Maple Leafs are going to make the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm here to tell you they're going to. A lot of the crowd is analytics heavy, and I get it. You lose Mitch Marner. He's an incredible player, but it's not like the Maple Leafs have nobody because they lost Mitch Marner. Like I keep saying it, there's a bigger issue if this team can't make the playoffs and they have Auston Matthews, who pound for pound, still the best goal scorer on the planet. You have Willie Nylander coming off his career high in 45 goals. He's a top player in the league. You have Matthew Nyes, who's taking another step forward. You have that crease. You have that blue line. There's just so many reasons to tell me and suggest that the Leafs are more inclined to probably battle for an Atlantic Division crown than miss the Stanley Cup playoffs. So to answer your question, if they don't at least get to the conference final, I think heads will roll. I think jobs are on the line. There has to be that expectation considering how many years we've seen of Matthews and Nylander and Tavares and Riley and everything I just said about the blue line and the crease. Like, they're better equipped to be successful in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They have to find a way to push through. If not, I think some jobs will be lost and some tougher decisions will be made here.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot for a quick second as I saw this post on Daily Faceoff this morning on the Instagram. But who gets more points this year, Auston Matthews or Mitch Marner?
So this is a hot take I had last week. I'm going to go with Auston Matthews. I just expect Matthews to get more to the type of player we saw win the Hart Trophy. You never want to say never, but I think 50 goals is a fair threshold for a guy who scored 69 a couple of years ago. You tack on 50 assists, you're already at 100 points. I know Marner finally got to 100 points this past season. The one thing I'll bring up, Jack Eichel got 94 points this year. That's a team high for Vegas in the history of that illustrious franchise in 6 or 7 or 8 years here. So I think it's been difficult in the past for guys to be 100-point players with Vegas. On top of that, there has to be a period of transition for Mitch Marner. You go from Toronto, you've known that market since birth, and you go to Vegas. What happens when Marner realizes nobody's at the games in terms of media focus, and it's not about him anymore? It's about the Vegas Golden Knights. How's he going to react? So I expect a bit of a transition process. I think he's going to have a great year. I think they're a really great team. I think they'll compete for a Stanley Cup. But from a point production standpoint, that's why I'm looking at Auston Matthews. This has got to be ego-based too. You lose the Robin to your Batman. You lose your best friend with this team. You got to put your big boy pants on. You're the captain. And that's why I'm forecasting a monster year for Auston Matthews and one that's better at least in the regular season, than Mitch Marner, which is understandable and reasonable, I think.
What is your as we ask everybody this question as we kind of wind down our interviews, what is your favorite jersey that the Leafs have worn?
You know what? I really like these like Bieber throwbacks or whatever their next gen jerseys. Like I really like them.
Mhm.
In fact, I'd want them to be like their full-time jerseys. They'll never do that, but yeah, probably that one, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good one. What about non-Leafs jersey? What's your favorite NHL one? Like, do you have a few?
Um, yeah, I'm just trying to think off the top. Like I like when Colorado goes back to the Nordique jerseys.
Mhm.
Even like what the Mammoth have done with their jersey. The Oilers is a classic. I hate to say to somebody who covers the Leafs, like the Montreal is a classic. I got a big issue with jerseys because I used to be a kid who used to collect jerseys growing up, and I have different players. I remember I bought a Zach Parise Minnesota Wild jersey when he signed with Minnesota all those years ago. But I stopped buying jerseys because they make 17 new jerseys a year. Like you really can't put your finger around like that being their jersey for X amount of years. You got the sponsorships on the jerseys now. But yeah, I'm a classics guy. Like give me anything classic and I'll take it, boys.
Oh, yeah, that's a great answer. I love the classic ones. Like I got my Chicago one here, the
Yeah,
Bedard, and it's just
saw
like you
that.
can't
Yeah.
go wrong with Chicago, right? Like it's just such an iconic look. Now, Nick, you guys over at Leafs Morning Take have interviewed a number of wonderful people. Who is like one of your favorite guests you have been able to interview?
It's a good question. I mean, there's been an array, as you've mentioned. I would say Scotty Bowman's got to be higher atop that list just because of how legendary the guy is, and he's always willing to come on and talk hockey. So probably that's my answer. 1B would be Wayne Gretzky. We had Gretz on, I think, the first year in the summer, and he was just a lot of fun. Just even setting that interview up was amazing. Just be able to talk to hockey royalty the way we did for 15, 20 minutes, whatever long that interview was. That's probably like 1A, 1B is like Scotty Bowman, and Wayne Gretzky. But yeah, there's been a bunch. Matthew Nyes, Joseph Wall, John Cooper, Travis Green's one of my personal favorites as well. But yeah, Scotty Bowman definitely stands out of the list too.
That's a fantastic one. I remember watching that one and clipping some of it for Daily Face Off, and yeah, that was a great interview. Hey Nick, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it, man.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Nick.
you
Take
too.
care.
No worries.
Well, Colton, a nice interview there with Nick Alberga from the Leafs Morning Take. Learned a lot about the Leafs this season. Definitely don't know what that Atlantic Division is going to look like going forward. I think it's going to be a little bit more competitive this year.
It's
The
going to
Wings,
be
the Habs, the Sens, maybe not the Sabres just yet.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. I'm excited to see how that one plays out this year. It's and one thing I saw too on Daily Face Off, I think it was the other day. Yeah, there's the Habs. And there's also a Habs jersey right there. But the other day I saw a Daily Face Off post that had said which 100-point team is going to miss the playoffs this year, and a lot of the comments were the LA Kings. So
I don't know. We talked to Dennis Bernstein the other day, and he said that guys like Quinton Byfield could be in for a breakout year. And I don't know if guys like Byfield stick around and actually like Drew Doughty again. He came back from injury last season, so if Doughty can kind of step up his play, the Kings might not be an easy out.
yeah, no, for sure. But no, that was a great interview with Nick. Him and Jay Rosehill do fantastic stuff over on Leafs Morning Take over at the Leafs Nation YouTube, part of the Nation Network, of course, where I work. But they do fantastic stuff. Of course, I'm biased, but like, go watch some of their interviews, like Scotty Bowman, Wayne Gretzky. They have Adam Copeland, or who, as most people would know him as, is Edge from WWE. They've had him on a number of times, and that's probably the coolest interview I've ever seen. Like being able to interview him would be so sick. Dude's got a bunch of goalie masks, like Ed Belfour and all these different goalie masks in his background. So cool. But no, I learned a lot about the Leafs. Thought that was fun. New York boost. Leafs have it easy in the Atlantic without the Bruins. They have no competition. Oh, okay.
That might be the hottest take of the day.
That is a hot take. I like it, Boost.
Because I think Boost is forgetting about the Bolts, the Sens, and the Habs.
I wouldn't
And the
say the
Panthers.
Sens yet, but well, the Sens made playoffs, so I would
They
actually
made the
agree
playoffs.
that yeah, I'd agree that they're one of the teams for sure. Um,
Well,
I'm
Colton,
trying to think.
I wanted to touch on this since we're on the Atlantic Division topic.
Yeah.
The NHL released their Stadium Series logo for the Bruins and the Bolts this upcoming season. It's hockey outdoors in Florida. But here's the logo, and I think it's absolutely sick. You got the boat. I, I was a fisherman, so anything that has a boat, I like boat. But I think it shows like the tropical the trees over here, like it just screams Florida. But I'm excited to see how hockey does outside in Florida.
That dude. That's gonna be so cool though. That Stadium
Yeah,
Series.
because
I
the
think
Caps
that.
are also playing in a game as well.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. So
I,
I think that's gonna be cool. I'm excited to see what the jerseys look like though, because I've always been a big fan of like the Stadium Series jerseys. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they look like, because sometimes those teams can really go all out and they can make some pretty creative fucking uniforms, man.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple things that we didn't touch on at the start of the show. The first one being the Hamilton, or not the Hamilton anymore, the Brantford Bulldogs. Sorry, they signed Adam Banach. Colton, you've been big on Banach the last couple of
Yes.
years. You wanna touch on
Yeah.
that? We talked with Reed Duthie about it, and he did actually sign this morning.
Yeah, I exchanged a text message actually with Reed Duthie, the Brantford Bulldogs play-by-play commentator. We had him on the show last week. Awesome guy. Yeah, so Brantford announced that they've officially signed Adam Banach, who's a Czech forward. He's 5'7", 170 pounds, something like that. He's pretty much exactly me. So there you go. There's a little personal information.
Okay.
So
Are you 5'7"?
yeah,
Are you actually?
yeah.
Oh, dude, I'm not gonna lie. You look at least like 5'8", 5'10", like that area.
I might be
I guess
5'8".
I always see you through a camera. By the way, folks, myself and Colton, we've never met. I live in Nova Scotia. He
True.
lives in BC. We're literally coast to coast. But thanks for the information, man.
Yeah, there you go. So when we go to Pittsburgh for the USHL Fall Classic, we'll get a picture. But yeah, so I think Benak's good. I think he's going to absolutely tear up the OHL this year. Are you kidding me?
Willie says
I
he's
had a fan.
5'7" also.
Checks out. That checks out. He had a great season last year in the USHL, so I think Benak is really a guy that can pop off this year and just explode onto the scene. You think about who Brantford already has with Jake O'Brien and Merrick Van Acker there. You add in Benak. That's a pretty good lineup, man.
A great
Pretty good
goaltender
lineup.
in Ryerson Leanders as well. Reed Duthie said he could definitely push to be one of the top goaltenders in the OHL, if not the CHL this year.
Yeah, so and Ryerson Leanders and Owen Protz, of course, is an upcoming defenseman now with them. He's kind of becoming a standout guy. There's lots to like on that Brantford team, and I think that they're definitely one of the teams that I would put in a favorites category to win the OHL Cup this year, or the OHL Championship.
Definitely. Colton, what are your thoughts on the NHL 26 cover that was released today? Obviously, back-to-back champion Matthew Tkachuk on the cover.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
I thought it was good. Makes sense that Tkachuk is on it, of course. It's the first time, I believe, in 10 years that they had put a Stanley Cup champion on the cover, because Taves was the last one. They had him holding the cup. That was 2015, I do believe. NHL 16. So yeah, I thought Tkachuk on it makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's a figure down there. But now we got to see, Dayton. Does the EA curse now happen to Tkachuk and the Florida Panthers?
Well, going on the cover and then having a bad season or what?
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen to the Florida Panthers.
Even Boost here in the comments saying, "Kaya is the cover curse for the Panthers this right?"
I don't know. Matthew Tkachuk, he's a dog. He's a grinder. He'll get through anything. So I think
Yes.
there's nothing but good coming for the Florida Panthers, probably for a third season in a row. But Colton, we do have Jason Gregor backstage. So you want to bring him up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, Jason, how's it
how's
going?
it going today?
Pretty good, fellas. You?
Good.
Good.
I want to start with going back to what's kind of happened here in the offseason with the Oilers, and obviously Evander Kane gets traded to Vancouver. What did you make of that deal, and what kind of hole does that now put into the Oilers roster?
Well, doesn't put any hole in the regular season because Kane didn't play a game in the regular season last year. So, obviously when Kane's healthy, he's an effective player. He brings an element of physicality and nastiness that not a lot of players in the league have. I really think Trent Frederick will likely replace that for the Edmonton Oilers. And now Frederick was here last year, but he only played 7 minutes in the regular season and then played in the playoffs, but he was banged up. So I think they'll miss Kane. When his game's on, I think Evander Kane's going to be a highly motivated player this year for Vancouver. He's entering the final year of his contract, and he said in the playoffs he felt healthy. I did think that the lack of regular season kind of caught up with him later in the playoffs, and that's normal just because he didn't have the proper training that you would like to have as you're rehabbing. But overall, I think I don't like Edmonton will be able to handle the loss of Kane just from. They have Frederick in the lineup already. They got some other guys. They're gonna go with a little bit of reliance on some youth this year. One, maybe both of Howard or Savoy. Not that they're going to replace Kane's physicality, but they're obviously guys they think that can score.
What did you make of the Ike Howard deal and giving up Sam O'Reilly? I was a guy that was very high on Sam O'Reilly and thought he would be he's going to be a great NHL player. But I understand from the Oilers' standpoint, it's about who is able to produce now and who can help out right now. And Ike Howard provides that. What did you make of the trade?
Well, we don't know if Ike Howard provides that. I'm one who's always cautious on rookies. A lot of people want to overrate them and think, hey, it's hard to score in the NHL. Ike Howard's coming from college, and we'll see. He'll get every opportunity, but I won't be floored if Ike Howard spends some time in the American League. It might not be that long, but people forget Leon Draisaitl spent a month of the season in the American League as a 20-year-old before he came up to the NHL. And so, lots of guys do it. And Howard will come into a situation in Edmonton where, there'll be opportunity for sure. The Oilers would love to have some more production on the wings in their top six. I don't think there's any debate about that. So we'll see. But I'm not sold like that Ike Howard, honestly, that he's automatic to do it. It's hard. David Tomasek, who came in from the Czech Republic, he might have just as good of a chance. He's 29 years of age. He's played against men. He led the Swedish Elite League in scoring last year. He led it in goals 2 years prior. Like, he's done it against men, and I do think that that will matter. Whether or not that transcribed for him into NHL goals, I don't know. But there's definitely some question marks in Howard, Savoy, Tomasek, and if one of them becomes a productive player, then that's a win for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And another player, two players that were brought in here this offseason, Andrew Mangiapane and Curtis Lazar. Lazar in particular, I think, is a great fit for Edmonton. Of course, he had played with the Oil Kings. He had won a WHL championship back then, so he's familiar with that. What do you make of those additions?
You know what? They're fine. I don't see any real downfall in it. Like, Curtis Lazar is going to come in and probably help on the penalty kill a little bit. I think that he's Noah Philp was here last year briefly. But I think Lazar probably has the leg up on him. He's a veteran. They're going to want to improve their penalty kill. Their penalty kill really hasn't been good. Like, it had a stretch and then it was unreal in the 2024 playoffs. But if you look at it, 3 regular seasons, it's been 77, 78, and 79%. So they're looking for some more consistency there, and he's a right shot. So he definitely should be able to help out theoretically on the penalty kill and win some faceoffs. He was above 50% in the draw, which is pretty decent.
Yeah,
Jason, we touched on. Oh, sorry, Colton. Jason, we touched on Matthew. Sorry, Colton. Touched on Matthew Savoy there, Jason. Touched on Matthew Savoy. What do you think his expectations are this season? Because last year scored 54 points in the AHL with Bakersfield. Coming in, doesn't really have a certain role on this team yet. But what do you think his expectations are?
I think, like Ike Howard, he's going to get a look. Now, he has the advantage of having a year of pro experience under his belt, and I think that really matters. And Matt Savoy, the coach already said, Chris Knobloch, that Savoy is going to get a look on the penalty kill right away. I think they really like his two-way game, and I think that really matters. Ike Howard's probably a little bit more of a purely offensive player at this stage of his career, but Savoy really, and that's why it's a benefit. I firmly believe Savoy got to play in the American League last year, and he got to penalty kill, and he got to be on the power play, and he played 5-5. He played a ton of minutes, and so that's what you want from your young players. If I'm someone developing guys, I'm not playing Ike Howard 10 minutes a night in the NHL just because, he's not going to kill penalties, and he's not going to be on their first unit power play. He'll probably get some second unit time, and I do think Edmonton's second unit's going to get a little bit more time this year. Not 50-50, but maybe 65-35 or maybe even 60-40. We'll see. But I look at Savoy, and I think he's got a lot of potential. He's quick. He's good on the forecheck, and he's got good offensive instincts, and he could be a really good complementary top six winner.
Yeah, he might be a smaller guy, but do you think the offensive instincts and his skill definitely outweigh that?
Well, in the regular season, sure. Playoffs is a different animal completely, right? But if we're just talking regular season, yeah, Savoy, he's always been a small player. He knows how to succeed at every level. He's done it. You look, he was I think top 5 in rookies in the American League last year. So it hasn't been a detriment yet, but we all know in the NHL, it's a bigger, it's a stronger man's game. It just is. So now there are small players who are effective. You have to learn how to bring that lack of size and use it to your ability, and maybe not have it as a disability at times. And I think he's shown that 1 year in the pros. And Savoy's more of a darter. Like, if all of a sudden the game gets down low and you're battling, well, obviously he's going to have a disadvantage. So he's got to play his game, what works to him. He's a darter. He's in and out of traffic. He's really smart with or without the puck. And I think that's key for Edmonton. Edmonton needs some players who can produce more than what they've got in the last few years outside of Zach Hyman 5-on-5 with Draisaitl McDavid.
We saw last year at the end of the season and into the playoffs, Vasily Podkolzin, he was starting to actually come to his own, and he became a very good fit for the Oilers. Do you think this year he could be kind of a breakout player, have a breakout season, if you will?
Well, he's a good candidate because he is a former top 10 pick. Like, he had some skill when he was drafted to go in the top 10. And he's a player who's reliable defensively. He's a really good forechecker. He'll get Draisaitl the puck. He has some continuity playing with Draisaitl. Now, the offensive numbers weren't there. Although in the playoffs, he did have 10 points in 22 games, which, prorates to about 38, 39 points for a guy who's not on the power play. You take that all day long. So I do think Podkolzin, of all the returning non-stars in Edmonton, a guy who's poised to maybe double his goals, and could he go from 8 to 16? I think that's possible. You got to be realistic. He did score 14 as a rookie, so I think there's definitely an opportunity that he could be a guy who does something like that. And worst case scenario, if he's on your third line and scores you 12, 13 goals, there's nothing wrong with that.
What do you make of the Pickard and Skinner tandem going into this season again? As we know from the outside perspective, there was a lot of noise, but being inside Edmonton, what do you make of it?
Well, obviously they'd like a little bit more consistency. I don't think there's any debate on that. Stuart Skinner in the first year under Knobloch in the regular season, those 50 games that Skinner started when Knobloch was the coach for 69, Skinner was top 10 in goals against, top 10 in save percentage, top 10 in goals saved above expected, and first in wins. Like, he's really good. Last year, obviously, wasn't the best regular season for Stu Skinner. I think he'd be the first one to tell you. He just needs to find a little bit more consistency in his game. And I think Edmonton might look at the waiver wire. There are some teams out there, Boston, New Jersey, a few others that have 3 goalies, and they're going to have to decide who they're going to put on waivers. And if DiPietro gets put on waivers, or even Dawes gets put on waivers, I could see the Oilers considering it, and having someone push Calvin Pickard. Maybe that's where I see the battle. I don't see a big name, 100% number one goalie being brought in now. And it's really going to be up to Stuart Skinner. They'll probably make a decision during the season, but he's been good enough to help the Oilers get the Stanley Cup final twice. And I think, look, ask Dallas fans in the conference final if they think Stuart Skinner isn't very good. He outdueled Jake Ottinger both years. So I find when it comes to Skinner, people only focus on the bad games. And when he does have a bad game, it's really bad. And especially in the playoffs, one really bad game can grossly skew the numbers, like in 2024. in 2 games, Skinner was bad. He was awful against Vancouver. In his other 21 starts, he had a 2.14 goals against and a .916 save percentage. Like, take that all day long from the guy who's going to enter this season as the 38th highest paid goalie in the league.
What do you think the expectation is for the Oilers this season?
Well, they're in their win the Stanley Cup. There's nothing that's their internal expectation. That it's not higher outside anywhere. I don't care what media outlet, any fan base, whatever. Inside the room, the players, they want to win. Obviously, they've came as close as you can without winning the last 2 years. So that's what it is. Can they make their life a bit easier by finishing higher in the standings? Probably. But again, six, what have they played? 8 series last year, last 2 seasons. They've been at home, I think, for 2 of them. So, it hasn't really, they lost the Stanley Cup final to Florida this year, not because of home ice advantage, and they had it. Florida was just a better team. This year, the year before, you could argue that had they had it, maybe they would have won. But they've been able to win on the road in Vegas and Dallas and Vancouver and LA. So, if they have to start on the road, they're comfortable there. But I do think ideally for Edmonton, you'd like to win the division as the first step just to give yourself a better chance.
Now, I saw this on Twitter X yesterday. So, I mean, we can all take it with a grain of salt. But it was a question that was asked to the Oilers fans about whether there's more pressure on Connor McDavid to win a Stanley Cup or more pressure on the management to surround him with a team to win a Stanley Cup. What do you make of that?
Wow. I don't know if there's more or less. I think pressure gets overrated, if I'm being bluntly honest at times. People who don't face pressure love to say, oh, these guys are facing lots of pressure. Like, nothing I say or any other media person says or any fan says is going to put more pressure on the players. McDavid wants to win. He's one of the greats of the greats. So is Leon Draisaitl. They want to win. So, there's an onus on them. Stan Bowman obviously wants to win. But, if they don't win this year, it doesn't mean that they can't win the year after that. Like, they're in a window now. Once McDavid signs his extension for at least probably 5 more years, that you say, hey, Edmonton's got a legit chance to win. Doesn't mean they will, but that's what it is. The team around them has been really close. Like, everybody forgets they dominated Vegas and Dallas this year. It wasn't close. Like, they spanked them 8-2 in those 2 series, or the games were really close. So Edmonton's really close. If Zach Hyman and Matthias Ekholm are healthy, do they win? I don't know, but there is sometimes some luck to it. So I don't think the organization needs to panic and make an emotional move. I think, if anything, Stan Bowman has to just try to make rational decisions and not avoid emotion, good or bad. That's going to, and it's a challenge, right? It's really hard. Like, even if the Oilers win a cup this year, if they lose, eventually you got to let some veterans go. That's just the reality. You can't always have all their older players. And so that's, I think, going to be the biggest challenge moving forward for the management, is to not get caught up in loving all of your veterans and keeping all of them. History tells us that doesn't work.
Jason, for our Canadian fans, can you kind of give them a little explanation what it's been like and how important it has been to the city to have their team in the Stanley Cup finals the last 2 seasons?
Well, it's a unique salary cap era for Edmonton fans for 20 years, because the first year came out of nowhere and they went all the way to the Cup final, lost in Game 7. And, it was really, for a younger fan base, that was their first taste of playoff success. And then they had the decade of darkness where they're the worst franchise in the league for 10 years. Like, the only fan base that can really, Florida, funny enough, had 10 years where they sucked. And then Buffalo's now at 14. Like, it's brutal. And the Oilers, obviously they got a little lucky winning the McDavid lottery. No question about it. Probably got a little lucky when Buffalo opted to take Sam Reinhart instead of Leon Draisaitl in the draft. So, you get a little lucky for sure. And now having a competitive team for Edmonton, it's obviously great for their fans. You have older fans who saw the 80s that are loving being back and being a competitive team. And then you have the young fan base that's their first experience enjoying it. And they've got some experience in losing, and that sucks. Ask any fan. Like, it's disappointing. Like, probably the Bills lost 4 in a row, right? Like, the Oilers definitely don't want to get to that category just yet. But I look at Edmonton, and the city obviously lives and eats and breathes hockey. So They're ravenous for it. They want a championship desperately. And, we'll see. The Oilers, they'll enter the season as one of the favorites again to win the cup. And I really think for Edmonton, it's going to come down to health and who does Bowman add at the trade deadline? Because that's where your big additions come for the most part. And I think Edmonton's likely going to add a right shot defender there and maybe another forward. And who knows, depending on what happens in goal, maybe a goal.
So one thing I wanted to touch on here as well. So the 2025 draft class, and that guy right there, Tommy Lafreniere, was picked up by the Oilers. And I've had a chance to get to know him. I work for the Kamloops Blazers, so I've had a chance to see him day in, day out. And he's a guy that I think is truly a diamond in the rough player. And being drafted by Edmonton, he's a player that, he had 50 plus points this year. But in talking with NHL scouts, I talked to one scout out of a Central Division team, and he said he sees a lot of Nick Suzuki in him. Have you had a chance to watch much of Lafreniere at all?
I've seen him a few games. Nick Suzuki would probably be a real high bar, if I'm being bluntly honest. I anytime when I talk about young prospects, I think too often we always want to use best case scenario. Oh, this guy, he might have some, but Nick Suzuki's a hell of a player at the NHL level. I don't think Lafreniere doesn't skate as well as him. Let's just start there. So, he'll have to improve his foot speed for sure. Just to get to the NHL, never mind be Nick Suzuki. I think that's probably, I would say it's unrealistic. Doesn't mean he can't be an NHLer, but I don't know if he's going to be that high end of an NHL player. So, he's someone who's young. He's, anytime you're an offensive player coming in the Oilers organization over the next 5-7 years to develop, it's the best time because whenever you come to Edmonton, no one's going to look at you to be a savior. No one's going to look at you to be the leader. You just got to be a complimentary forward. And that is some of the best situation a young player can be in, where you come in, all the spotlight and the onus is on McDavid and Draisaitl and, Evan Bouchard and, whoever else will be around Edmonton at that time. But, young kid, I would be thrilled, obviously, to be drafted by Edmonton if you're an offensive player, because if you just focus on your own game and work on your own game, you get to the NHL level, you're going to have the opportunity to get to play with two of the greatest players in the league. And then you got to think the game. That's you got to be smart and you got to work hard, but you have to be able to, if you want to play with Draisaitl and McDavid, you have to be able to think the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're definitely probably right in the sense that we use the best case scenario a lot. And I actually, now that I've heard that, I think that's very true when you kind of look at the way that prospects are kind of brought up and talked about. But Jason, you've spent a lot of time covering sports in Alberta. What's been one of your favorite moments throughout your career?
It's a good question. I've been very lucky in my career. I've had a very diverse career, and I've called play-by-play for lots. I've hosted a talk show for 20 years now. Obviously, I had podcasts nationally and stuff. So on Daily Face-Offs, so I've done a lot of different things. Interviewing Donovan Bailey for an hour in studio, because I still remember where I was when he won the 100-meter race, and I loved his belief in himself, and just his whole message was great. Doing play-by-play in the NLL for 10 years was unreal. Lacrosse is a sport I didn't know a lot of when I started doing it, and I fell in love with it. I still think it's the best game to do play-by-play as a play-by-play announcer, because it's so fast. The game makes you sound more exciting. It makes you sound better as an announcer. And so calling a championship with the Rush in 2015 was a lot of fun. And really just, the last few years, covering a Stanley Cup final team, you go to the Cup finals. It's obviously the peak of the sport that you cover. So yeah, I'd probably have to say those three. I don't know if I can pinpoint one, but I've had lots of different opportunities and experiences through my show, which I'm very happy for and very blessed. And so I like the diversity that my career's allowed me to cover all sorts of different sports at different levels.
I've got one more for you, Jason. You touched on the Edmonton Rush winning their championship in the NLL. Who do you think wins a championship first? A Grey Cup for the Elks or a Stanley Cup for the Oilers? I know the Elks are 1-6 right now, so that might be a little tough. But who do you think?
Well, I'd have to go with the Oilers because the Elks aren't close right now. So Edmonton is easily a team that's I don't know what the odds are, whatever, but Edmonton's going to be, I think, a top 5 team. I don't see how they're not when the playoffs begin. And the Elks, even in a smaller league, are a top 5 team. So I do think the Elks organization with Chris Morris and Ed Hervey are on the right path. It's I know that their fan base doesn't really want to hear patience again, and I totally get it. So I understand the frustration there. But yeah, I'd have to go with the Oilers. I do think that it's harder to win a Stanley Cup now, just because there's more teams and there's so many other factors that go into it. So, once the Elks get competitive, then, I would like to think that they could win again sometime, but it's been a rough slog since they won the Cup. And it's funny, the Rush and the Elks both won in 2015, and the Rush have had a lot more success since they left and went to Saskatchewan than the Elks have had in Edmonton.
Hey, Jason, the last one from me. What is your favorite Oilers jersey?
Oh, I'm gonna go with probably the original with the orange on the shoulder caps and the kind of the, I guess is that royal blue. I'm not a jersey guy as far as the color coding, but that to me is the best one. I think it's kind of one of the original ones. I like the orange. I'm actually probably in the minority, but I actually really liked it when they had the majority orange jerseys. I know the kids loved it, and so, but the players didn't. That's the main reason why they got rid of the orange jerseys. The players didn't like it. So, but that would be my second favorite. But I do love just the classic orange and blue. I think that's the one that looks the sharpest. Yeah,
I'll say I'm a younger guy. I definitely used to dig those all Oilers jerseys.
Oh yeah, like they look great. I really don't understand why the players didn't like them. I'd probably have to. I never asked them. I probably should ask them about that sometime. But I've always found that one interesting. Like you look at the Dallas Stars neon green jersey; those are unreal. Mm-hmm. And so I know that young kids usually, not all, but lots of them like the bright colors. I've always liked bright colors in any jersey for any team, but. I just wish teams wouldn't switch jerseys all the time. I just kind of get tired of, like, some of the Oilers jerseys were junk. I don't like them at all. So I wish they just kind of keep with what's good and, not always switch. I get it. It's an industry that you want to, you're always trying to have something new so the fans will buy it. But you have a good jersey, like Detroit and Montreal don't change their jerseys very often.
And whenever Montreal did change their jersey, I remember they brought in that blue reverse retro. Every time they wore it, they lost.
Yeah, wow. There's the other thing. But although, was the team bad or is it the jersey was bad? I'm not sure.
Maybe a little both.
Probably.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Jason. Really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem, fellas. Have a great day.
Take care.
You too.
Colton, that brings us to the end of it, but we're going to throw it to a quick commercial break, and then we'll be right back to wrap up the show.
Looking for a new way to quench your thirst? Game Day Tarps is now an official Quench affiliate. Head on over to quench.ca/GameDayTarps podcast and use our code GameDayTarps podcast, all caps, all one word, for 15% off your total order. Stay cool this summer with the #1 sports drink on the market. Stay quenched.
Is the off season bumming you out?
Yeah.
Do you wish you had more hockey content to consume?
Yeah.
Well, head on over to patreon.com/GameDayTarps and check out all the exclusive content we have to offer. Behind the scenes videos, in-depth analysis, and so much more. Select a membership tier and enjoy the content made only for you. Only at patreon.com/GameDayTarps.
And fellows, please go check out the audio versions of our episodes. You can listen to them wherever, whenever. Willie, what do you want for a new ad, man? I'll make a new ad, but you got to tell me. Yeah, Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere else that you get your podcasts. There's eight other friggin' platforms that we're on. We're everywhere. Go find us. Please go download it. It'll help us out massively. Colton, there's a question that came in there. Let Willie do the ad read. Absolutely not. No. Willie, it would have to be free for sure. Willie asked me here in the chat a question when we were talking about the Bills. He said, what's my NFL team? I'm an East Coaster. I think it would have to be the Pats. No Brady bandwagon here. It's literally just the closest team. So That's my answer to you, Willie.
Willie, if you want my answer, it's the Jaguars. Since when so
That's crazy. Travis Hunter
they've been my
bandwagon.
team. No, they've been my team for 4 years.
Oh, okay.
Basically, Trevor Lawrence bandwagon.
Right on.
I'm a Clemson fan, so.
Well, Colton, you want to let everyone know what's coming on or what's going on tomorrow? Who's coming on? What's going on?
Yeah. So tomorrow we got Evan Rawal from the Denver Post. He's going to come on and chat the Colorado Avalanche with us, so that'll be fun. And then Mike Gould, who is a host of the I think it's called Back Burner. It's on the Flames Nation channel. He writes for the Flames Nation. He also works for Daily Faceoff, does a bunch of news stuff for us. He's going to join us and talk about the Calgary Flames. We're going to dive into the Flames off season, their draft, and what kind of to expect this year. We'll talk about, I don't know, we'll talk about probably Nazem Kadri trade rumors, Rasmus Anderson.
Since we're on the Flames talk right now, and we talked about the NHL 26 cover, I want to show you something that I cooked up because I think EA Sports missed the mark so hard. I think if they did something like that.
For those of you that can't see it, it's a picture of Johnny Gaudreau.
Sorry. Yes, for the audio versions. Yes, it is Johnny Gaudreau on the cover. I think if they would have done a salute to Johnny, that one, they would have sold, and two, it would have just been a perfect way to cap off. You know?
Would have been good.
But a double Stanley Cup champ is also not bad. So the game itself probably won't change. Again, like every year, NHL 26 is the exact same.
The reveal trailer comes out tomorrow, so yeah, you'll get to see.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The reveal trailer looks so much different than gameplay. You hop in and you're like, what is this?
That's true.
It's like the first year they brought in the lacrosse move, and then you get on the ice and you have to be a rocket scientist to pull it off. Like,
yeah, good point.
Willie says he'll play us in NHL. Willie, I'll DM you on Twitter. We'll set that up.
Oh God.
Well, Colton, is there anything else you wanted to touch on today before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, I chatted with Dylan Garand from the New York Rangers for the Blazers. It's in the CHL. So that is on my Twitter at Colton R. Davies. You guys can go find that. Talk to Dylan Garand, awesome kid. Chatted about his WHL experience in Kamloops. We talked about what it's been like living in Hartford and playing for the Wolfpack. And we talked about Igor Shesterkin a lot and how he models him and learns from Igor pretty much day in and day out. So that was a fantastic chat. So you guys can go read that. It's pretty long, but you guys can go read that on the CHL website and or find it on my Twitter.
Nice. And I guess while we're on this page, fellas, head over to the Patreon and check out my day in the life video that I posted the other day. It's pretty much it for me, Colton. We'll be right back Wednesday at 11 a.m., 2 p.m.
Anton Hudobin has just retired.
Sorry, cut the intro. Anton Hudobin retired. I remember the first day I saw Anton Hudobin play. He played in Halifax for the Boston Bruins when Boston played Montreal in Halifax and absolutely beat up on the Habs 7-3. Boston brought their whole team. They had Marshy, they had Chara, they had like everyone, Seidenberg, like Matt McQuaid, Hudobin in net though.
Adam McQuaid, what a guy.
Yeah, but I got to see this guy play right there too. It was pretty cool, but they lost. But yeah, folks, that wraps up this Tuesday edition of GDT. We'll be back Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, right back here on GDT Live. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for tuning into another video over here on the Game Day Tarps podcast and the Hockey Podcast Network. We've got so much more where this came from, so smash the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell, turn the notifications on so you never miss a beat. For myself and the rest of the guys over at Game Day Tarps, we thank you, and we'll see you next time.